Welcome back to another episode of the Who You Know Show podcast, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. My name is Trevor Houston, and on this show, you'll learn the strategy, grit, and mindset it takes to overcome obstacles so you can level up in your career, recover your cash flow, and live the life of purpose that God intended for you. Don't forget to look at the mic drop moments time-stamped in the show notes below. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pay it forward, subscribe, and leave an honest review so we can improve. Thanks for listening. My name is Trevor Houston, and please enjoy this episode of the Who You Know Show.
Hashtag rise and grind. So Glenn, I would like to give our audience a little bit more of your backstory, where you came from.
Yeah, man. So it's really interesting. Like, I grew up in a really unique way. So my father is, my dad is black. My mom is white, and they got divorced when I was 11 years old-ish, somewhere right in there. And, my dad, who is black, got remarried and married a black woman. My mom, who's white, got remarried. She remarried a white dude. They ended up moving in 2 apartments apart in Flagstaff, Arizona. So my dad and his new wife were at apartment 30, and she had 4 kids of her own. And then my mom and her new husband were at apartment 28. There was literally one apartment in between us.
Oh my goodness.
And I got to tell you, man, every stereotype that you could think of existed in these houses. Okay. So dad's house was like fried chicken, collard greens, gospel music, hip hop, lots of TV, sports, loud, right? It was like, you know how it is. And then mom's house was like some country music, maybe some rock and roll every once in a while. I'd see her sit on the couch, like reading a book, it was all quiet over at mom's house. So I grew up in these 2 worlds at the same time. And looking back now, I'm so thankful for that. Right.
Amen.
But at the time, it was difficult for me because I didn't really understand where I fit in. My skin was too dark to be considered white. It was too light to be considered black. And so I became a bit of a chameleon to where I could get along with everyone on a surface level, but I didn't really have any like deep relationships with anybody. And I was just constantly trying to figure out where I fit in. So that upbringing at that season of my life led me to get into a lot of trouble, hanging around with the wrong people, making a lot of mistakes. You know how it is.
Yep.
And I also didn't have, at that time, like I didn't have any moral understanding. I didn't have any spiritual understanding. And so I was living a very 2D life is the way I like to describe it. Mind and body. If it looked good and it felt good, I was in, right? I was in. And so that led me to, ultimately making some mistakes early. And then, fast forward, you burn enough bridges, you make enough bad decisions. And that landed me on a beach in San Diego, California, homeless, depressed, nowhere to turn, and ultimately thinking, and feeling like the only solution at that point, or the best solution, what made the most sense, was to end my own life. Because, man, I'll tell you, Trevor, when it comes to homelessness, people think, oh, well, you're hungry and that sucks, or you're broke and that sucks. But really, the worst part about homelessness is you become invisible, man. Nobody will make contact with you. They're afraid you're going to mug them. You will ask them for money, whatever. And when you feel invisible and you don't have a spiritual foundation, that loneliness quickly becomes an incredibly dark place. And so, taking my own life felt like the only way out.
Wow. I mean, totally, relate to some of your story. I have some of a similar upbringing. Kind of grew up in a broken home, and I was in and out of jail when I was a teenager. Getting in a lot of trouble, and by the grace of God, I was able to actually the law forced me to move with my father. And I can only imagine where I would be if I never was, taken out of the environment that I was in. I was in a pretty broken environment. And I can relate to what you were talking about the whole chameleon thing, because growing up with my mom, I had a lot of people living with me. My house kind of became like the homeless shelter, right? We had,
Mm.
she was disabled and couldn't work, right? And so we had people from all backgrounds, ethnicities. My role models, right? The male role models in my house were like the thugs, the ravers who were doing drugs with the glow sticks, and the goths,
Yeah.
and what we called the freaks were wearing all black and makeup. And I mean, I had pimps living in the house. Like, we had all kinds of different people living in my house, right? And I was getting in a lot of trouble early on. And then, again, I was forced to move with my father. So I'm so thankful and grateful for that, because kind of took me out of that environment. And even my family, suicide runs in my family. I mean, no one's been successful, thank God for that, but they've attempted several times. And so a big mission I'm on, I'm actually going on to a new docuseries called The Social Movement. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, releasing next year. But a big mission I'm on is to help eradicate suicide, and that's what we're going. We're 4 days to help solve some of these issues that have been going on forever.
Yeah.
You know,
I can identify too, because I'm adopted. So I was born in Korea and was adopted at 5 months old. Grew up in Northern Illinois, which is white and black. And I was the middle of 3 boys. Both my brothers were white. So nothing to the extent that I think you guys experienced, but I can catch a glimpse of that just because of some of the ways that I was confronted with being different, right? And not fitting in. So
yeah,
yep.
Yeah, totally. I think people are, generally a product of their environment, and we talked about this before. Like, you need good nourishment, you need good soil, you need good light, you need a good environment. So, Glenn, tell me, all right, I can understand, things got you to that point. What helped you get you out? Right? In your video, it says the ocean pushed back. Right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
that
right.
was the
Talk
Pacific
to me
Ocean.
about that. Like, the ocean but thank God the ocean pushed you back, man. Right?
So going back to the stereotypes just a little bit, right? So I'm not a very good swimmer. Let's just put it.
Oh, come on, Glenn, man.
Wow.
We gotta have a representative, bro. Come on now.
I am not a very good swimmer, and so my plan in my head was swim out as far as I could, and I wouldn't be able to make it back.
Oh wow.
And so as I swam out after everybody had left, it was in the evening, and I swam out as far as I could, and right when I thought it was going to be the last moment, right, like the struggle, the buoyancy, I couldn't touch the ground anymore. I was tired, heart rate up, all of that. There was kind of this moment of peace, man. There's this moment of comfort right before death that I've experienced myself, and that I'm also witnessed in when I watched my grandfather pass away. But right after that moment where I thought this is it, and I was comfortable with that, my feet hit the ground because the tide was coming in, and I wasn't even strong enough to swim out past the tide. And so it literally pushed me back into the shore. And as I just lay there, man, like, that was, and you can say, at that point in time, I wasn't a very spiritual person. So I didn't really understand. Looking back, you could say God spoke to me, or it was a feeling, or it was a tug, or it was a pull, or, whatever you want to call it. But I just all of a sudden felt this sense like, okay, the universe is big and filled with opportunities. Your problems are actually really small in comparison to how big the universe is. And if you really look at it, Glenn, no matter what city you were in, no matter what people you were around, there was one thing that was constant in every bad situation of your life, and that was you. Like, you were there, Glenn, for every single bit of that. And so I'm not going to let you get out of this easy, because you are not a victim. Instead, you're going to have to figure out this third dimension of yourself, the spiritual aspect of yourself, and realize that if you are responsible for the bad, you can also be responsible for the good.
Mm.
And so that really shifted my mindset from a victim mentality to, okay, there's no easy way out. There's lots of opportunity. I just got to dive in here and figure out who I am so that I can go out there and make positive impact on this planet versus a negative. And so that kind of led me down a journey where I started to study spirituality. I spent 6 months studying Scientology. I studied Buddhism. I studied religions. And ultimately, I learned the truth about Christianity and the truth about Jesus and God is my savior. And so I started still making tons of mistakes along the way. Don't get me wrong. It's not like a light switch, but still making mistakes. But I started to realize that, that I'm a child of God, the God of the universe, God that made everything. And within that, in my DNA is this ability to create, and that we all have a born on date and an expiration date. And that little dash that's in the middle is all about impact. What kind of impact can we make in other people's lives? That's what I learned through my studies.
Hold on. We got something we like to do here. So we're going to do
The
this.
dash in the middle.
Yep. All right. You ready?
Ready.
Mic drop. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we had to give you a mic drop.
No, man. So I appreciate that. I really do. And so from there, I started really living my life 3D, 3D, man, mind, body, and spirit. How do I serve all three of those? And, through that journey, I really started learning, and I really started reading a lot of books and just really studying, success and humanality and connection and just finding myself. I really had to find myself and my place. And that's when I started to recognize, like, hey, dude, I'm half black and I'm half white. That's dope, because I can talk to anybody about anything. And I've been homeless before, so I can connect with that, make an impact in homeless people's lives. And I've been broke before, so I can make an impact in broke people's life. And now here I am, I've experienced some success financially, so I can impact people that have experienced success financially. And I can make an impact with people who've been depressed. I can make an impact, all of those different areas. And so now I understand that we are all given gifts, and the parable of the talents is the parable that I refer to, every day in my life. Is God has given me these gifts. And if I don't go out there and use them to multiply the impact that my life has on this planet, then he will take them away. And believe me, I know it. I know what it's like when it all gets stripped away, and I don't want to experience that anymore. So that's where I'm at now, man. Just trying to make an impact in other people's lives.
Glenn, I liked what you said, which is, in essence, that when you found your spiritual path, right, and you found Jesus, became a Christian, that was your path, but you weren't perfect. It wasn't like everything was just perfect at that point, and it wasn't easy. And I think that all is the story about the refiner's fire too, right? You've been refined by fire.
Oh yeah.
And that's made you who you are today, and blessed by gifts that you're now able to give that other people aren't. So, man, that's awesome. Your story is super powerful.
It is very powerful.
I understand why God would give you 8 children, B.
Hashtag blessed. Okay. This man has 8 children. Okay. Hashtag blessed. Glenn, so what was the next step after that, right? So you do some automotive training and things like that. Like, how did you get into that? Where did some of the, your training come from?
So in my 2D life, in my early 20s, I got into the automotive industry, and I spent 7 years, this was prior to homelessness and all that in San Diego. I spent 7 years working in the automotive world, in your typical dealership, right? The dealership that you see in all the movies, that was my dealership, right? Where we're taking advantage of people. And that was my dealership for like 7 years. And so but I was good at it. Like I I had a mouthpiece, man. God gave me a mouthpiece. And so I was good and I was making money, but my life outside of those four walls was, was not good. I wasn't serving, my first daughter's mom. It just wasn't good. And so I went through this whole season. And when I came out of it, I was like, I'm going to stay away from the auto industry. I don't want anything to do with it. I really had a bad taste in my mouth for automotive. And I was doing some other things. I was working in bars and restaurants and, just kind of trying to find my way. And I met my wife now, that I'm getting ready to have my 7th child with, and 8th child overall, 7th with her. And, my wife was like, dude, you're like, we got a baby on the way. And so the only thing I knew how to do was sell cars. But now I had a new 3D version of what that could look like. And so I made a commitment. I was going to go back into the industry. I was going to change the industry. I was going to make an impact in the industry. We were going to, instead of me being a victim to the industry better watch out. I was about to go through and shake things up.
Yes.
So I got a position at a small dealership in a small town, Paris, Kentucky, and started as a salesperson, worked my way all the way up to the general manager of the store. And in that process of really looking at the industry, flipping it 180 degrees, in that process, we were able to grow that dealership 100% to take it from a tiny dealership in a podunk town to the 2nd largest used car franchise dealership in the country.
So that's why the 800 Club that's it.
See, is that a goal right there? You got hashtag 900 on your hat back there.
This is actually one of the dealers that I work with, a guy named Brad Wise down in Tampa, and his store goal is to get to 900 cars. That's his store goal. That would be an 800% increase for them. But yeah, man. So now that's what I do. After we grew that store and had a lot of success, we went from 40 employees to 300, put that dealership on the map, so on and so forth. And God is crazy, dude. Cause right when I thought, okay, I'm doing good. I got babies. I got the house. I got the white picket fence. I got the good job. I'm making money. I'm making an impact. Everything's good. And right when I got comfortable, God came over and was like, gave me a little tug. And he was like, hey, I'm going to need you to hop out the boat real quick. Cause we got some more you could do,
Yes.
And so I quit my job in October of 2018, which shocked the auto industry. People were like, why would this dude quit his job? Like, they're winning, they're rolling. I was the face of the dealership, all of those things. And I quit. And now I work with dealerships all over the country, helping them implement those strategies so that they can create a winning culture in their stores all over the United States of America.
Man, that is awesome. So Glenn, I got some backstory. I can relate a lot to this, man. My background comes from the auto industry. I spent 6 years at Huffines Hyundai in McKinney. And, I was their top producer there for 6 years. I was crushing it, early 20s, just crushing the game in the auto industry, right? I remember my first year, I went to a conference, you're probably familiar, Grant Cardone.
Oh yeah. Me and Grant are, I know Grant Wells. First training video I ever watched when I was 19 years old was Grant Cardone, and he's been on my show a couple times now. We've become somewhat of friends over the years.
So check this out. I go to one of his conferences and I was reluctant to go, okay, because I was the top guy. I was crushing it and I'm in my early 20s. You can't tell me nothing, right? So,
right.
And my GM wanted me to go. He's like, you need to go. Grant Cardone's the bomb. You need to go. And I'm like, nah. It was like $1,000 to go. I'm like, I didn't want to spend $1,000. I'm like, I'm already good. Like, I already crushing it, right? That was my mindset. Well, my dad talked me into it. My dad said, you know what? When I was in the painters union, I learned one trick that I've made money on my entire career. He says, you need to go. You need to learn one thing, right? So I was like, all right, Pops, I'm going to go. So I went, and that thing lit me on fire, right? I'm telling you, from then on, I was just like, I was already crushing it, but I was dominating in the car business after seeing Grant. And the funny part about it was, though, I was terrified to talk with him. Like, after the conference, right? I didn't want to go talk to him. I was a little bit intimidated. And I also knew that he was going to close me. He's going to close me on all his books and DVDs, and
No doubt.
and I didn't want to spend $5,000 on all that stuff. I didn't want him to make eye contact with me, because if he did, he was going to close me on all the books and tapes
That's a
and
fact.
everything.
That is a fact, man.
But I outgrew the auto industry too, man. I got kind of like shut down on some advancement. I wanted to grow. I wanted to be a general manager. I wanted to, kind of grow up in the industry, but kind of politics and things like that kept me from moving up. And so that was God telling me it was time to go too, right? That's all that was. He was pushing me out the nest, saying, hey, it's time to fly.
My light bulb went off as both of you guys are talking. But you guys remember the prayer of Jabez where he was asking God to increase his territory? Well, why should God increase your territory until you learn how to handle that territory? If he made everything, wouldn't it make sense that he's the one that we should pull close to understand how to operate in his world? Okay, I'll shut up.
Hey, that's a mic drop.
One of our viewers, Meg Rose Caterio, she's in the comments. She asked what your bracelet said, and I know it's about rise and grind, and I just want to know if there's a backstory on that, where that came from too.
So this particular bracelet, I wear this one a lot because this bracelet, it says rise and grind on one side, but then on the other side it says your journey is our priority. And that is a philosophy that we had at the dealership, and it's a philosophy that I still have today in my business. Is, it's not about me. My business is not about me. It never has been. My life is not about me. It's your journey. How can I help serve you along your journey? That's my priority in life. And so this bracelet's just a reminder, because we're human, dude. We're human. And I believe we need reminders around us all the time, because it's very easy to fall off the path. It's really, especially a guy like me, it's easy. And so, yeah, that's what that is. Your journey, our priority. That's it. Like, I got to tell you, so auto industry's crushing, life is good, right? Everything's good. I literally thought, because I loved the owner of the dealership too, right? And so I literally thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this for another 10, 15 years. I'm going to retire. I'm going to love every second of it. Like there wasn't a single day that I didn't love being at work. Not a single day. And that was my plan, man. And after being with them for 7 years, I took 10 days off. It was the first time I'd taken any time off. Like, and when I mean any time, like, my wife had all those babies and I didn't miss any work for all of the babies. None. I had my appendix removed. I did not miss any work. Like, I just didn't, right? That's how I was built. So I took 10 days off for the first time ever. I take 10 days off. And the reason I took 10 days off is I had an opportunity to be a part of a conference in Florida called Hustle and Grind Con. And the keynote speaker was Eric Thomas, E.T., the hip hop preacher. Yep. And I was going to get to speak on stage with E.T. So I was like,
he's powerful.
That's what's up. I get to speak with E.T. Right. So I go to that particular event. I get to hang out. Not only do I get to speak with E.T., but after he's done speaking, he comes up to me and he's like, hey, Glenn, take down my cell phone number. I want to connect with you, so on and so forth. Right. So he gives me his cell phone number. And I'm like, this is crazy. E.T. wants to connect with me. Like, this is nuts. And I had a moment when I was on stage where the hairs on my neck stood up in my arms. And I was like, this is cool. And then I had my friend, Danelle Delgado. She's a world-renowned speaker, best-selling author. She's just an amazing human being. I met her 3 years ago. And so she was there speaking also. And I was like all fanboy on E.T., right? Like, total fanboy after he gave me his number, right? And Danelle was like, Glenn, you have to realize something. You are the asset. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you put yourself in a position of service to where Eric Thomas sees value in you. He feels like you can help him. He's not just handing you his number for, just because he meets millions of people. He doesn't hand out his number to everybody, but there's something in you become the asset, right? So she started to twist my mind a little bit. So I'm like, okay. So I go back home and I spend 3 days with my family, right? Which I normally I'm at work. I don't spend that much time. So I spend 3 days with my family. My wife's amazing. My kids are beautiful. Everything's blessed. Then that weekend, there's a men's Christian leadership conference at my church. I normally can't go to those because in the car business, you work on weekends. So I had mapped it out so I could do that. So that's why I ended up taking 10 whole days off so I can go to this men's Christian leadership conference. So I'm at the men's Christian leadership conference and our pastor, Scott Nickel, Scott's up there on stage and he's got this flannel graph Jesus, right? And he's like, this is what most people think Jesus looks like, this little flannel graph, and he's holding the sheep and he's smiling and he's kissing babies and all this stuff. He's like, but I don't know if you've read the same Bible that I've read, because the Bible that I've read shows me Jesus going in, flipping tables and telling people like, look, man, I'm not going to put up with this nonsense. This is crazy. So the message of the whole weekend was we need to fiercely fight, right? Fight whatever our mission is, whatever it is that God has put us here to do, the impact that we are designed to make. It's supposed to be a fight. We're not supposed to passively go through this life. That's not how it's supposed to be lived. We're supposed to aggressively seek people to serve aggressively, right? So I walk out of this men's Christian leadership conference and now I'm, ET gave me his number. I'm the asset. Got the beautiful family. I'm like flowing, right? I'm like, Jesus is a fighter. I'm going to go and fight. We're going to do all these things, right? And I'm jacked up. And now I get to work Monday morning after being off 10 days and I got my suit on, boy, and I am ready. And I deliver this powerful morning meeting, man. I'm back and we're going to fight. We're going to do all these things. And as soon as I get out of the meeting, there's two owners, one that I love because he's an amazing human being. And the other one I love because God tells me I have to love all people. So I go in.
Wow.
And so I go into this meeting with the other one, right? The one that I love because he's my brother in Christ and no other reason. And in that meeting, the first thing he says to me, now this guy's not great with words. It's not his fault. He's just like his role in the dealership was to stay behind the scenes. We didn't let him talk to customers and stuff because he just wasn't good with words. And so I'm jacked up. I go sit down in his office. And the first words he says to me, he says, Glenn, I don't like you.
Oh, wow.
And I went, I've been here almost 8 years. I've given you everything. I've helped you grow to the second largest dealership in the country. I've sacrificed, or I shouldn't say sacrifice. I don't like that word. I've invested time in you versus investing time in my family. I've done all of these things, right? And I know what he really meant is he didn't like that I was doing a lot of social media and that I was getting a lot of credit for the success of the store versus him, whose name's on the building, right? Like I knew what he kind of meant, but the words he used was, I don't like you. And so I kind of got like, I'm like, wait a minute. And so as I'm sitting there and he's explaining to me all of these things, all I hear in my ear is my friend Danelle, you are the asset. You're the asset. And so I heard her voice and he keep talking. I don't even know what he's saying. I'm over here in my mind. And that's when I felt that tug, dude. God was just telling me like, hey, you can sit right here and this is what it's going to look like a decade from now. Or you can make a decision right here, right now to follow me and I'll take you out and I'll show you what life could really look like for you. And so Dusty got done talking and I was like, I said, I love you. Thank you so much for the last 7 years. I said, I think this season's over. I quit. And his jaw hit the floor. I mean, my jaw almost hit the floor. Like, what? And so I get in my car. I sneak out the back because I don't want to cause a commotion. And I get home. It's 9:30 in the morning. My wife is 9 months pregnant. She's due in like 2 days with our seventh child. Right. And I open the garage door. She sees me. She says, what are you doing here? Cause she didn't expect to see me for about a month because I just took 10 days off. So So she's like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Honey, I quit my job." And I'll tell you guys, man, I've never seen my wife smile bigger
Wow.
than when I told her I quit my job, dude. She smiled ear to ear because, see, the one thing that I hadn't realized is how much weight I had put on my wife's shoulder. My career was blowing up. Our life looked good, right? We had the white picket fence and the money was taken care of. But my wife was carrying 6 kids basically on her own, man. I was working 70, 80-hour weeks. She
Yeah.
never once complained. She was so supportive, man. She encouraged all of my dreams, all of that. But deep down inside, she was hurting. And I didn't know that. See, God knew that. I didn't know that. And so she smiled ear to ear, man. And from that day, I've been creating a business that travels around my family versus my family having to travel around my business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you are the asset. We
Mhm.
are so grateful to have you come on here and share that story, that testimony,
And to our viewers,
to our viewers.
you are the asset.
You are the asset.
You are
That's
the
right.
asset.
We
That's
know
right.
now it may not feel that way, right? Sometimes, you're in a rut. Life hands you some bad cards.
Give God a chance to use you like he did with my brother Glenn up there. Glenn, you go ahead and
That's
let
it.
God use you, man.
That's it. I will, man. And thank you for that. I'm just incredibly thankful and blessed. Hey, if God can use a guy like me, I've been homeless. I've been on drugs. I've made mistakes. I've robbed, pillaged, all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
I even was an advocate that God wasn't real for a good season of my life. So if he'll use a guy like me, I
Yeah.
promise he can
You
use
know.
you.
Hey, Glenn, before we get out of here, man, I got a big favor to ask of you. You are part of the Who You Know community, and this is all about networking, right?
Right?
So I'm always
Yeah.
trying to level up, always trying to bring on better, guests to try to uplift our audience. And so you've mentioned a couple people, man, that I would absolutely love to get an
You
introduction
set the
to.
bar high.
You threw out E.T. Boy, man, E.T. That
Yes,
guy,
he
he lights
did.
me up, man. I'm gonna tell you, that guy, I
Yeah.
hear him speak, and that guy gets me just
Does he
lit.
light you up more than Grant Cardone?
Man, I will tell you, Grant, he does, man. He's more of a inspirational speaker than Grant. I love
Yeah.
Grant.
Because I know your spirit.
He is. He's
Yeah.
more of an inspiration. That guy, E.T. will, woo, man, he'll get you lit.
So Eric Thomas has that, you might have heard, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe.
Yeah.
That's Eric Thomas's
Wow.
big video that made him big time famous. But Eric Thomas has been motivational speaking for 31 years now. 31 years. He does like 250 speaking events a year.
Oh, my
He's
God.
the number one motivational speaker in the world.
So this has been something that God has spoken into me, a seed that has been planted into me. I used to be terrified of public speaking,
Oh,
and
he's
now
not
I'm doing
lying.
stuff like this, and it's just crazy what God is doing in my life. And a big mission that I'm on, again, is to lift up my audience, to lift up the broken, to get people, who are on the bottom to leave on a rocket ship. And so, like Tony Robbins, right? That guy will get you pumped up, get you jazzed. People like E.T., right? He'll get you jazzed up. So I'm trying to learn from people like you, because one of the things that I want to do is to have almost like a Tony Robbins feel for job seekers, where job seekers can come in and come in broken and leave on a high, feeling like they can accomplish the world, because they can.
Because they can.
They are the
Yeah.
asset, right? And
That's right.
I want them to know that and to feel that. And so, anyways, I'm trying to level up and trying to learn from people like you who have already done it and crushed it. So there you go.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, here's what we're going to do. So, obviously I'll connect you with ET and hopefully that can go somewhere, but the real, not that he's not the real, but the woman, Danelle Delgado, that whispered in my ear that, that she's become one of my dear best friends. We do business together. We talk nearly daily. She spoke at Grant Cardone's 10X Growth Conference, the very first one. That's how I met her. And
Wow.
her words from the stage completely transformed everything for me moving forward. And so I connected with her, and she's incredible, man. She just was on, she just got a Forbes magazine cover just last week. Dude, there's something special about this.
I want her
woman.
on this
You have
show.
to know her.
Bring it
Yeah,
on,
I'll
man.
get
Let's do it.
That we can make happen.
Let's
No
do
doubt.
it.
Yeah.
No
Let's
doubt.
do it. And
So-
thank you so much for that. I appreciate it because it's all about who you know, right?
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.